Do you smell that? Oh, God, I love the smell of walnut. This is $4,000 worth of walnut. And this acrylic sheeting, $6,000 for 2 sheets. That's $3,000 a sheet. I know, don't even get me started. But those are our materials for this week, and that's a hell of a starting place. I'm Nick, welcome to the shop. Let's get dusty. A recent comment challenged me to build something that's beautiful based on its simplicity, not its complexity. If you've watched any of my videos, you might recognize that I get my rocks off on complexity. If you're new here, hi, this is Dutch. So I found myself going down this deep rabbit hole of just super intricate, nerdy wood stuff, and while I love the execution, design is by far the bigger challenge, which is why this comment resonated with me. Beautiful because of its simplicity, not its complexity. Yeah, this should be fun. Let's see where this goes. Let's talk about this acrylic sheeting while I do that. $3,000 a sheet. Why is this so expensive? Honestly, I don't know. It was a client request. Probably not something I would have selected myself, but I'll admit it does feel high quality. Let me know down in the comments, would you buy $3,000 sheets of plastic? Whew. That's a workout. All right, we got all the rough material broken down. This is gonna be the legs for the consoles and the desk. And now it's time for my favorite part, milling. I need an employee. Beautiful based on simplicity. Beautiful based on simplicity. It's really hard for me not to try to overdo this. All right, minor change of plans. There's no way I can do 3 pieces that are that plain, so we're gonna step up. So it's gonna be console table initial idea, and then I just ordered some custom metalwork for the second one. The desk is gonna be sort of a textured front, and then the credenza is gonna be all me. So we'll get kind of a progressive taste of the whole entire design, simplicity, beauty spectrum, and you can be the judge. Let's get those stretchers done, and then we'll move on to the front of the desk while we wait for plastic and metalwork. The stretchers that I could resaw one piece. As you can see here, there's a little bit more movement than I would like, so they're just too twisty. And on the more simple of the 2 consoles, that's going to be a very important piece in structurally, since it's basically the only 2 things holding the 2 sides from going all wonky. All right, I got the thin stretchers laminated together back into thick ones, way more stable, way less wobbly. I cut some new thick stretchers for the desk, and then for the frame to connect the 2 stretchers together, I got all of those done. So we need to cut the joinery, but I want to do all that at the same time. So I'm going to work on the front panel for the desk, and at that point I think the lumber in the racks will be acclimated enough to move on to the carcass for the credenza. So these panels after resawing are about 1/4 inch out of flat, and typically you want everything to be perfectly flat, but I got this panel all glued together, and I tried something since I didn't really care that it was going to be out of flat. I have always wondered this, when you resaw and it turns into a bow, if you take those resawn pieces take calls and smush them. Will they even one another out? And sure enough, this panel's almost dead flat. I've always been too scared to do that on a panel, but now I know. Now you know. Cool, huh? Alright, are you ready for this to start making sense? I've got these little, let's call them shims, and to add texture to this front panel on the desk, I'm going to place the shims. I want a wave, sort of if you took a segment out of a pebble, the ripple in still water, that like just sort of slight, subtle undulation on the face of this. I could have just added straight slats. This won't be a lot harder. The grooves, well, you'll see. Let's do it. All right, that looks cool, but it's a little too subtle, so I'm going to space these blocks out a little bit and see if we can get a little more of that swoop going on. I was tinkering around a little bit off camera, and the consistency I'm looking for is kind of in the way it tapers off into the board. I also found that book matched flip-flop of the grain all the way down that made that nice pattern when they were all together really didn't read across the whole board with the spaces between. So what I've done is slip matching them, or in other words, the same grain going down, just to clean it up a little. And I've added some shorter blocks at equal distance away from the main spacer in the middle, so I can control that taper with greater accuracy in the glue up. Cool, huh? All right, I like the looks of that a lot. It's really hard to see on camera because it's not in place yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this glued, and then you can see, you should be able to see what this little swoopty is doopty doing. All right, that could have gone a lot more smoothly getting off the truck. Luckily, everything's good. I was like, man, I need to get to the gym more. This thing's heavy. And then I saw this on the packing slip. 2 sheets, 521 pounds, signed in blood. I mean, that's what I do. I always sign those in blood. So yeah, that stuff's really heavy. I've been putting off doing a practice cut because I'm scared to death of it. But I did get a special blade, not sponsored. Let's hope this thing works. Pray for me. So I don't want to sound negative, but I'll be totally okay to never work with acrylic again. Couple of things. I've had really bad luck with metal fabricators. I don't know why. Maybe my projects are just not big enough, but I'm still waiting on metal powder coat. I've reached out to a few different places and it's like not a cheap part. It's at $800 for 5 rods. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, they are really hard to work with. I'm sure that's not true for all of them. So I'm expecting that to be done this week. I'm gonna load all of this up and put it in a trailer and head to Idaho to deliver. I did some test resaws on the credenza, which you'll see in the next video. And that looks like it's about ready to get chopped down. So I'm gonna get going on that guy and we'll finish up the joinery here. Hopefully the metalwork comes in here shortly. And yeah, let's keep on trucking. Just a few more tenons to cut in this acrylic. So there's a couple of issues with the acrylic. The wood panels are going to move. The acrylic is not going to move. So I've got to have a fixed point in the middle. I want it to be supported on the outside, but it's got to be able to float in there a little. Otherwise it'll jam up and crack something. So I'm just hoping that all of this comes together really cleanly and those made up really nicely. Now that I've got that super enjoyable process of cutting acrylic over with, I need to transfer these tenons over to the verticals on the legs and the console tables. We were talking about wood movement, so the center one gets fixed. The outer ones need to float. So I'm gonna just make a mark here wherever the tenon ends, and then I'm gonna take that, add about maybe a quarter on the outside and a quarter on the inside, just to make sure nothing binds, since this is going to Boise desert from Portland, rainy. I just want to make sure nothing ever has an issue, and then we'll epoxy this center one in and it'll be fixed. All right, I think you've seen the Panto router run enough, so I've got these little stubby tenons and I marked out across those aprons where the stretchers go, so now we just need to cut those into the inside section of the aprons. All right, so we've got all these subframes. I'm gonna have to pre-finish everything, and what I could do is take my sander and sand down all the way through the grits. What I prefer to do is just take one swipe with the hand plane. So I'm gonna get these broken back apart. We'll get them smooth and move on to pre-finishing, and then we're done. So since these are solid verticals for the legs, those don't actually hit the ground very well, and you'll get a more stable piece of furniture if there's 4 contact points. So what I'm gonna do, I just set up a 1/2 inch bit just outside of the fence here, and I'm gonna take the end grain on the bottom of each one of those legs and just kind of carve out a little scoop. So you can see just a little 1/16 inch scoop along the edge. All right, this is always the super frustrating part of a build where I'm completely out of horizontal surfaces. Unfortunately, I still have one more piece to go, so I'm gonna finish these 3 up. I'll get the video out for you guys and we can do the credenza in a whole separate video. It'll be kind of a fun one. Make sure you're subscribed for that and we can get on to finish sanding and get some finish down. Cool, let's do it. One last thing I wanna do before I get these all bundled up is I got these really cool little laser engraved nameplates and I'm gonna inlay them. So I'll show you those here in a second. Let's get them inlaid. The request on this job was actually to do oil, but I did some tests and I think the conversion varnish with a shellac base is going to give pretty much the same look and it'll be way more durable. The just doing an oil finish, it's not going to hold up over time. This isn't a lobby. This is going to see some traffic. There seems to be a movement away from the warmer tones of walnut and more towards the blackish purple tones of eastern species. So I'm going to be adding a little bit of black dye to transtant dye to the shellac base, and then after that's dry, we'll top coat in a water-based conversion varnish. One of the most difficult parts of woodworking, at least in my journey, has been finish. Now everyone likes a oil hand rub finish, but it's not very durable and it just takes a lot of upkeep. In my experience, not a lot of clients are willing to put that kind of work in to keep it looking good. Now this client wanted that look, and when I moved over to spraying finish, I knew that I couldn't be spraying toxic fumes. I've got neighbors, I've got a small shop with no ventilation. So water-based seemed like the only option, and I'm so pleased with just like that silky matte finish this left behind. Using the black as the base really brings out that walnut color, and then top coating in a very, very durable catalyzed 2K urethane gives just silky matte, looks like it was hand rubbed with oil, but it'll last forever, zero upkeep required. Pretty cool. Now I know I said I was going to get those 3 pieces together, but I want to get a video out this week, so I'm going to do the most simple one while I wait for metalwork, which should be here next week. I've got a class I'm helping teach with Michael Fortune in Seattle. Then I'll be back to the shop and I'll get the metal installed on the larger one, and the desk is just so massive that I don't want to put it together yet because I'm not going to be able to move it, and it's going to be a huge pain in the ass as soon as it's all in one piece. So we'll get to see, we'll call this level 1 of 4, and I'm going to stretch this out. So tune back in next week to see all of them, and we'll get this thing, the simple one, put together right now so you get to see what this turned out like. Wherever clamps don't work, I love using straps. So we'll go ahead and get this epoxy to set up. The specifications for the acrylic product says that edge treatment to get that same sheen that's on the top is just running through sandpaper. I'll knock over the edge and the simple one's done. So I'll see you in a bit once this epoxy's dry, and we'll get that done. You can see how this thing looks. Hey guys, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you aren't already, it would mean everything to me if you subscribed. Sorry we didn't get to quite all of the projects, but I think this really showcases that beauty from simplicity thing that we were talking about at the beginning. So I think this is a perfect place to hit pause from level 1, and we'll visit level 2, 3, and next week. We'll see you then.